Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod. We have Fitz Koehler with us, president at FITZNESS International. How do I describe Fitz? Well, she's a celebrity fitness expert, the author of the Everything Flat Belly Cookbook. I believe you survived cancer as well, Fitz, which is quite incredible. You're also a speaker, TV news personality. And I guess you started with a master's degree in exercise and sports sciences. So today we're going to talk about authorship, about fitness, about biohacking, hopefully, how to hack your body as a woman after menopause could be an interesting topic as well, after cancer as well. We're going to talk about podcasting as well, which is a topic that we both share. Last but not least, you were also an announcer of various races, which is super interesting. As an ultra marathon guy and a serial Ironman, it's always very meaningful when people announce you at the finish line. This podcast is brought to you by podbuyer.com. If you want to start a podcast, I help you do that. I help you get sponsors, help you get guests that you can monetize into leads, and I get you paid through AdSense, YouTube AdSense. So podbuyer.com if you want to start a podcast. Fitz, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me. And you did a pretty great job on the intro. I'm, at the heart of who I am, I'm a fitness expert. I help people live better and longer, and I crave mass impact. So where when I was younger and I taught in a fitness center, that was just fine. And then once I started teaching on television and affecting strangers, my craving became for monstrous amounts of people. So everything I do is designed to hit a large market, whether it's speaking or writing books. I'm the author of the Cancer Comeback series. Of course, my race announcing. Sometimes an organization gives me 30,000 people and says, "Hey, Fitz, make sure they know what to do, where to go, and have a great time." And the podcast, it's all interconnected, and I just love sports and fitness, and I love people, and I'm a real believer that it can change your life for the better, not only the way you feel, look, and perform, but your social life, your professional life as well. It's a one-stop shop for success.
Did you always like sports? Is it in your genes? Because me, at some point, I was a couch potato, sort of a gamer, and spending most of my time gaming. When I was younger, my brother reintroduced me to the gym. And from then on, I discovered endurance sports. I was at the self improvement phase of my life, in which I was living to be 1% better on a daily basis. So sports and biohacking became really important at this point. So I imposed that lifestyle on me, right? So it didn't come natural. Did it come natural to you?
Well, we were a sporty family. My parents always kept us in sports so we wouldn't get in trouble. So whether it was cheerleading or speed skating or softball or soccer, football, you name it, we were playing. I really wasn't great at anything as a kid, but I was active. And then I started teaching fitness right before I turned 15. And that's something I really shined in. That's a place where I had good skills, where my siblings were elite athletes, competitive. I really shined in the fitness arena. And but I was still overweight. Excuse me. I was probably about 40 pounds heavier than I am now when I started college. And then I figured out how to eat healthy, and yeah, I mean, I've evolved, but I'd say fitness movement, yes, part of my DNA, more importantly, part of my family's culture, and that's really what matters, right? Because people like they like to blame their family. Well, my family's overweight, that's why I'm overweight. No, your family is big because they have garbage habits. They don't exercise and they eat poorly and they probably drink. Maybe they even smoke, right? And you've decided to repeat those behaviors, and that's why you're out of shape too. So I don't really have a lot of I don't know, concern over genetics. There's not a lot of things most of us can't outrun.
Is it a big problem in the US? I heard that who was that? RFK was about to be appointed in the whatever
Yeah,
health
the mom
department of
movement.
Trump.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've traveled worldwide and I've seen overweight people everywhere, right? But certainly in the United States, we're not doing an overwhelmingly great job. And yeah, people need to move more. Period. End of story. People need to stop looking to diets and these stupid supplement stores. They need to just start watching what they put in their mouth and moving more. It's not very complicated.
think people are just like super overwhelmed, right? Like they are very stressed. They have way too much noise in their life, or they're way too comfortable. They're conditioned. So, how do you get someone like that out of this toxic zone?
Well, they have to want it first. So I have all the answers, but if you don't want the answers, if you're not willing to take action, then what use is it? Don't waste my breath, right? So first of all, people want to have to make change, and then they have to come to someone like me who will actually explain the truth to them, teach them the nuts and bolts of exercise. I always say I have a master's degree in exercise sports sciences. My master's degree is in the most simple, stupid science on earth. It's not very complicated. And so, A, you got to want it. B, you got to get the proper know-how. You have to be able to escape all the snake oil salesmen selling you garbage, selling you diets, selling you pills and powders and all the junk. And then you got to get to work. It's not so hard. And you were right when you said it. It's getting 1% better every day. It's not deciding you're going to run a marathon next week. That's ridiculous. It's 1% better daily, and that's totally manageable. And that means every single person on earth can do better and be better.
Yeah, I've changed various times my fitness routines over the year. Just finished 100K, so I was training for endurance.
Nice.
Now I'm bodybuilding, so that's like drastically different. Plus, my brain is feeling odd nowadays, like being tired a little bit, so it needs to adapt to that. But I think generally speaking, I would advise folks that have, well, in US, right, we all have an internet connection. Shouldn't they go on YouTube and write like 10 minutes high intensity training workout? Is that like the very basic thing most should do?
Hey, listen, if you want to do a hit workout, great, but you don't have to do that. And you don't have to run a marathon. You don't even have to know what an Ironman is, right? You have to do something that makes you huff and puff. I don't care if it's swimming or cycling or dancing or jumping up and down in front of your TV while you watch the news. It doesn't matter to me. If you're huffing and puffing, you're building cardiorespiratory endurance. If strength training is important too, and so you should be working to make all of your muscles more capable of lifting, pushing, pulling, pressing. That's it, against resistance, right? And if you do that, you're going to be more powerful. Your metabolism is going to be higher. Your bone density is going to be stronger. You're actually more likely to lose weight. You're increasing your metabolism. So it's cardio, it's strength, flexibility. It's your body's ability to move through a broad range of motion without feeling pain, having strains, or tears. Nobody wants that. So, extend your body to the nth degree till it makes you squint, right? And then you're making progress. And then, of course, balance training. And so people don't need to do circuit training, and they don't need to do high intensity training. Sure, those are good things. They're beneficial if you choose that route, but there's many ways to skin this cat. And really what I want people to do is find something that they enjoy, because if they do, they're more likely to stick to it. And if you're one of those weirdos who just says, well, I don't like any of it, okay, suffer, Pope, they used to say, right? Just do something, even if you don't want to, because the results are definitely something you're going to enjoy.
Right. Or buy a dog that will force you to walk that dog, and then that might lead to other things that might cascade into other things. I often see the misconception of people also that it's like, oh, I walked, I did my physical activity, or I did this in the morning. Now I don't have to do it again. I think I'm training like 3 or 4 times a day nowadays. It's like micro training, doesn't need to be hardcore. What other misconceptions are you seeing on a daily basis for people, let's say that they're out of shape? What excuse do you see out there?
Well, first of all, they say they don't have time. Well, figure it out, make time, right? Just make time. It's not about having it. Within America, we could say the American president is traditionally the most powerful person on earth, and that person's pretty busy, right? Barack Obama played basketball, lifted weights most days. George W. Bush, he rode bikes like a maniac throughout his presidency. So if the most powerful human on earth can do it, you can do it. But know that even 1 minute counts. So if I said, hey, get down and do 1 solid minutes of push-ups, you might get 20 seconds in and tap out and say, whoa, that's too much, Fitz Koehler. So you don't have to assign 30 minutes. Now, 30 minutes, I would say, is the gold standard, but it's not the only way to skin the cat. If you could do 1 minute of push-ups in the morning, 1 minute of lunges in the afternoon, 1 minute of jumping up and down, you just piece it all together. You can be fit even amongst chaos.
Let's talk about your own grit and what you've accomplished, because sometimes we speak to people, right? We tell them what to do, but people don't know our backgrounds. Like Goggins, right? Like when you hear him speak for the first time, you might hate on him, but you don't know what he went through. So you went through cancer, you went through
Yeah.
various tough things in your life. What are these things, and how did you get to the other side?
Yeah, so in 2019, 2020, I endured 15 months of chemotherapy, 33 rounds radiation, surgeries. I had breast cancer. It was a nightmare. It was scary. It was stressful. It made me very, very sick. I would say the worst outcome for me along from my treatment was that I was violently ill every single day, as if I had had food poisoning or a tequila hangover, whatever means sick to you. That's how I lived. I was bald. I was gray. I was a skinny little skeleton. I lost a lot of weight. It was very difficult. But what my CEO friends need to know is that I prioritize things before I started treatment. So number one, I never had a pity party. Never, ever, I never said why me. And the reason being is I live several miles away from a pediatric oncology unit at the University of Florida. And I know there's these little babies with cancer. And I figured, well, if them, why not me, right? Why wouldn't I get it if they got it? They didn't do anything. And I also considered myself very fortunate to be a grown up with cancer versus a child with cancer. And I was so fortunate it wasn't my kids. So perspective, number one. Number two is I was hell bent on pursuing my passions. Before I started treatment, I thought, cancer may steal my hair and some of my good feelings. It's not stealing time with my kids, and it's certainly not stealing this career. I have busted my tail for decades to build my brand, FITZNESS. And I am the only one to keep FITZNESS going. I'm the face and I'm the voice of this brand. I am the engine. And if I would have taken 15 months off to be sick, nobody would have blamed me except for me. If I would have taken 15 months off to be sick, FITZNESS would have disappeared. I would have destroyed my business. And so instead, I kept going. I had over 30 events on the books where I traveled around America announcing races, doing keynote presentations. I did them all bald. I did them all gray. And it was hard. The travel was hard. But, even if I would sleep on those hotel bathroom floors, the miracle of making the decision to get up and go is once I stepped onto those stages, every single thing that was wrong with me disappeared. When I was on a stage in front of a huge audience, whether they were runners or corporate people listening, I got to be full force Fitz Koehler again. This career I built is the right one for me. It's my passion. It's my purpose. And so whether you're going through a divorce or your house burns down or your parents are sick or whatever, know that if you chose the right career, if you are CEO of the company you love, the one you live for, keep going, keep doing the thing that fuels you professionally. Of course, my income mattered. People tend to ignore that, like, oh, you were sick, you should have stayed home. All right, well, who's going to pay my bills, right? So money was important. And then it just allowed me to be something other than sick. And being sick nonstop sucks. If all I would have focused on the whole time was my sickness, I'm not sure I would have survived. So those were very necessary things. The other most important factors were pursuing quality nutrition when I could and exercising when I could. Now, yes, I declined. I suffered. I kind of wasted away, but I slowed the decline and I didn't allow myself to get even worse because of my commitment to fitness. So, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're going through, know that you should control what you can when you can. When it comes to exercise, if you can't run and dance and do the things you used to do, fine, do something. I had a lot of sick in bed days and I would do leg lifts. I would do bridges for my low back. When I got in the shower, I would stretch. I was constantly just trying to push the needle forward, or at least prevent the needle from pushing me backwards. So fitness, mental strength, make those good decisions for you, and know that you don't have to wait for cancer to prioritize your health. And you don't have to wait for cancer to prioritize a great attitude. You can go after life with a vengeance now. Don't wait for, the Grim Reaper to come knocking on your door to figure it out.
Wow, lots of wisdom drop there. Thank you for that. Do you feel you've processed the full experience? Because us tough people, like well, me personally, I personally bury a lot of my stressors, and I found out recently that later on they resurface, right? in some shape and form. The body keeps the score. Do you feel that this method that you just described, it allows you to digest this big amount of stress, or do you still have some traumas off that and fully haven't processed the full thing?
Well, that's a really good question. And so all the things I said were true. However, I also cried every day. Every day I would cry, but I would keep it to like 15 minutes. I'd get the boohoo's out and I'd get on with it. There is nothing that looks like the stress that comes along with cancer. It was unbearable. It was scary. And watching myself waste away, those needles, every single needle made me cry. I mean, I probably got 300 needles along the way, right? And all of them made me cry. So I allowed myself to grieve. I allowed myself to vent the stress. I just never basked in it. And that's, I think, where people go wrong, right? They bask in the misery, and that's just not who I am. I wouldn't allow it. And so, yeah, I definitely processed it. Sometimes I look back and I think, oh my gosh, I can't believe that was me. I see pictures of myself, or, I have the books and people ask me about the books and tell stories. And I just, I am really fascinated that I did live in that crazy life. But cancer doesn't haunt me. I'm 5 years in remission now, and I'm very grateful to be. And so I've utilized cancer. I'm never going to be one of those people that says, gee whiz, I'm so happy I got cancer because cancer made all these great things happen. No, thank you. If I could go back and undo it, I would go back and undo it. However, the reality is I am better for it in many ways. And I'm not fearful of almost anything or anyone. I fear something happened to my children, but nothing else scares me. I certainly don't care about people's opinions. And I have now turned my hardship into joy. I have a thing I'm doing. It's a 21 round challenge. I had 21 rounds of chemo. And so now I'm replacing each round of misery with a round of awesome. And so I've done 5 so far, including I ran the Boston Marathon, which was wonderful. I competed in the Dancing with the Stars competition. I recently swam with whale sharks, which was on my to-do list for a long time. So I am purposely, pursuing life with a vengeance, and I'm better for it. So yeah, I've processed it all. I feel good. I'm very clear-headed about it.
What were the toughest races you've done, and what lessons have you got from them?
As an athlete?
Yes.
You know what? Okay, so this is the toughest race. It's not the most impressive, but when I finished chemo, so my first 5 months of chemo were nightmarish, and I was just bad. The last 10 months of chemo were less bad, and I was able to work on rebuilding myself throughout that process. And I didn't make a huge amount of progress, but I made certainly a decent amount. And when I finished chemo, about a month later, and it was during COVID, so everything was shut down except for Florida. All hail Florida, because we were open for business, and I got to go do a Spartan race. So it was a 5K distance, lots of fun. I failed on a lot of the strength challenges, but it was great. But I crossed that finish line. I felt a little cocky. And so I registered for a triathlon the next weekend. And it was a sprint triathlon, so it wasn't very long. And I just felt like I can do this. I'd been doing some cycling and swimming, and the distances weren't too long. And I was the first in the lake for the swim. I was dead last out of the lake. The swim, I hyperventilated the whole way. I mean, I got passed by the elderly, by children, by pregnant women, by everybody, but I still came out, and I was so proud of me, thinking, look at me, I'm done with cancer. And then I got on the bike, and you're frozen. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can. Sorry.
Okay.
That's my
That's okay.
connection.
That's okay. So I get on the bike, and it's 11 miles, but it's 11 miles around a really hilly area. And we only have one hilly area in Florida, and I was there. And so I get around the lake across from the finish line. I'm at mile 7 or 8, and I'm dogging it, thinking, holy cow, this is really, really hard. What am I doing? But in my mind, I was thinking, I can do hard things. I've watched myself do hard things. And so I come to the last street before the finish line, and it might have been straight uphill. I'm thinking Matterhorn. It was so big. And I couldn't pedal the bike anymore. So I had to dismount the bike, and I'm suffocating. I am I can't talk. I can barely breathe. I'm on this bike and I can't even walk at this point. I'm stuck there. And I have the cop behind me because I'm dead last. The cop's got the lights on, and a volunteer comes running over to me. And you know what? I'm this thin person. People probably think, oh, she's so fit. And I wasn't, right? I was still coming out of being a very sick person. And the volunteer's like, you can do this. And I couldn't even tell him, oh my God, I just finished chemo. And as I'm suffocating on that bike, all I could think about was how wonderful it was that the hard thing I was doing on that day was so much cooler than the hard thing I was doing a year prior, which involved like exploding, right, from chemo. And so it was miserable. And it was also so awesome. It was so great. I eventually pushed the bike up. I went to transition, and then I walked mostly, did a little bit of running for the few miles of the run portion. And I've never been so proud of myself. So many people would consider that performance a failure. And I just was so elated to be alive and that I had the audacity to register for this triathlon. And even though it sucked, I did it. And that was a great day. So yay me.
Yeah, it's amazing. I finished last at some races too, so I know what it feels like. And not so long ago, I got sick, obviously not cancer, but I came back from this 100K race totally destroyed. And there's a hill right in my backyard, right? And normally I just stroll by it. And I was panting for at least like 5 days when I did it. I was like, man, that sucks. Like, couldn't even breathe, like as you described, right? And that scared me. But yeah, health is so valuable. And we're going to do round two because, yeah, you're quite impressive. And we had such a few time today, but many interesting lessons. Thank you for that, Fitz. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, sure. So my website is FITZNESS.com. That's FITZNESS. If you're watching, you can see it over my head. FITZNESS.com is my home base for everything. You certainly learn about me. More importantly, you can learn about you. There's tons of free fitness resources, the exact formula for weight loss, free workout videos, recipes, all of those things. The 21 round challenge is there. If you know cancer patients, send them over to come live boldly with me. And then I'm also at FITZNESS on all social media channels. And, I'd love for people not only to follow, but to say hello. And my books are there. My books, Your Healthy Cancer Comeback, My Noisy Cancer Comeback, The Healthy Cancer Comeback Journal. Those are available. They're available everywhere, Amazon and so forth. But if you buy them at FITZNESS.com, they all come with a free gift. I sign every one of them, and I wrap them in beautiful, pink packaging and send it to my customers because I want them all to feel love. So yeah, FITZNESS, and please say hello when you do connect.